Ethan Cole sat on the porch of his old farmhouse, staring at what remained of his land. The fire had taken everything: barn, fields, tools, even the few animals he had managed to save. The smoke had cleared weeks ago, but the smell of burnt wood and ash lingered in his nose. He ran his one good hand over his face, feeling the rough stubble and the pain of exhaustion. Losing an arm in the rescue mission years ago had made life harder, but losing this farm felt like losing himself. He looked at the horizon. The sun was sinking behind the hills, painting the sky in orange and red. A quiet wind blew, carrying ash and dust. Ethan felt alone. He had neighbors, but most kept their distance since the fire. Some had said it was bad luck to rebuild. Others had laughed at him. When he said he would try, it was easier to feel invisible, easier to pretend he did not care. But inside, he wanted to fix the farm, to make it alive again. His old dog, a scruffy mutt named Max, lay at his feet. Max's tail thumped weakly against the wooden porch as Ethan reached down to scratch behind his ears. "We'll manage somehow, buddy," Ethan whispered. The dog gave a small whine, as if agreeing. But even Ethan knew it would not be easy. The crops were gone, and the soil had been burned dry. There were no machines left. He had nothing but his hands, his one arm, and a small amount of money that would not last long. That night, Ethan sat inside the little house, trying to plan. He looked at the faded photographs on the wall. His parents had once dreamed of turning this land into a prosperous farm. They had worked hard, planting wheat and corn, raising chickens and cows. Ethan remembered helping them as a boy, running across the fields, feeling the sun on his back. Now, all of that was gone. He turned on his old terminal, the only link to the outside world. It was old, but it still worked. He had signed up for many things after the fire, trying to find hope. One thing caught his attention: an interspecies companionship program. It promised to match humans with alien partners. Ethan had laughed the first time he read it, thinking it was a joke. But after the fire, after everything he had lost, he had nothing to lose. He filled out the forms. He wrote a little about himself, about his farm, about his love for quiet nights under the stars. He did not expect anything to happen. The next morning, a soft light blinked on the terminal. There was a message waiting for him. Ethan hesitated. He had grown used to disappointment. Slowly, he opened it. The message was short but clear. "Your match has accepted. A Cerathian woman named Lyra will arrive soon." Ethan blinked. He read it again. Lyra, Ceratia. He had no idea what a Cerathian looked like. Maybe it was just a machine error. But the message glowed softly on the screen. "Soon," it said. Ethan felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He had been alone for so long that the idea of someone else, someone not human, coming to his farm seemed unreal. That evening, as Ethan sat on the porch again, a small, silver pot appeared in the field. It descended slowly, leaving a light trail in the air. Ethan stood up, heart racing. Max barked, jumping around in confusion. Ethan's hand shook as he walked toward the pod. When it landed fully, the hatch opened and a figure stepped out. Lyra was taller than any human he had seen, with silver skin that shimmered softly in the moonlight. Her eyes were golden and bright, like to pieces of sunlight captured in her face. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, and her movements were graceful, almost floating. Ethan froze. He had never imagined anything like this. Lyra stepped forward and smiled warmly. Her voice was soft but clear in English. "Hello, Ethan. I am Lyra. I am glad to meet you." Ethan felt his throat dry. Hi, welcome, I guess." He did not know what else to say. She tilted her head slightly, watching him with curiosity and kindness. "I chose you," Lyra said, "because of your courage, because of your heart, not because of your wealth or your farm." Ethan blinked. Courage? He looked at the burned fields. "There's not much courage here. Just nothing." Lyra shook her head gently. "There's strength in survival. You survive when others might have given up. That is courage." Ethan did not know how to respond. He only nodded slowly. I guess so. Welcome to my, farm." Lyra stepped closer and looked around. It is small, but it has potential. I like it. Ethan could not believe it. He expected a machine, a strange alien who could not understand him. But here she was, smiling, and for some reason, he felt lighter. He felt hoped out. Over the next few days, Lyra began adjusting to life on Earth. She learned quickly. She carried water, helped feed Max, and even tried milking the few remaining goats. Ethan watched her, impressed. She moved with elegance but worked hard, and her laughter began to fill the empty house. Ethan taught her how to handle tools with one arm. She asked questions constantly, fascinated by every detail. Why does the soil turn brown when the rain falls? She asked one afternoon. It's ash, dirt, and water mixing. The fire burned it before. Ethan said, we will have to fix it, slowly. There's no magic here. Lyra nodded. I can help. I want to help. She did not mention that she had powers and knowledge far beyond human technology. She wanted Ethan to feel capable, not dependent. At night, they sat under the stars, looking at the dark sky. Ethan liked to point out constellations. That one is Orion, he said, pointing to 3 bright stars in a row. Humans have been looking at them for thousands of years. Lyra tilted her head. On Saradia, our skies are different. We have the suns, and the night is full of glowing clouds. Ethan listened, fascinated. He had never imagined another world. The suns? That must be hot. Lyra laughed softly. Yes, but beautiful. I want to see your world too. Ethan felt a small smile on his face. It had been a long time since he felt this light inside. She made him feel alive, not just sad and broken. One night, after Ethan fell asleep, Lyra stood quietly by the window. She touched a small device hidden under her robes and spoke softly in a language Ethan could not understand. Small holographic images appeared, showing Earth and a shining city on her home planet. She was contacting her family. She asked for help, not because she wanted to force Ethan to rely on her, but because she wanted him to have a chance to rebuild. She wanted to surprise him, to show him that the world could still have miracles. The next morning, Ethan noticed her quiet smile. Did you sleep well? He asked. Lyra nodded. Yes, and you? Better than I have in a long time, he admitted. He did not know why, but it felt safe to tell her, for the first time since the fire. Ethan believed that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. The farm could grow again. The house could be warm again, and perhaps, he thought quietly, he could find a place for happiness too. Max barked happily as Ethan poured water for him. Lyra watched, fascinated by the simple life. She did not mind the broken land. She saw what Ethan could not yet see, the potential. The life hidden beneath the ash, waiting to rise again. Ethan leaned back on the porch. He did not know what the future would bring. He did not know if he could fix the farm or if life would smile again. But for the first time in months, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Lyra sat beside him, her golden eyes glowing softly in the twilight. She did not speak, but her presence said everything. Ethan realized that maybe, just maybe, having someone believe in him was the first step toward rebuilding not just his farm, but his life. The stars shone above, and the night felt alive. Ethan closed his eyes, breathing in the cool air. Somewhere far away, another world was watching, ready to help him. And for the first time since the fire, he believed that the farm could live again. The morning sun rose slowly over the burned fields, painting everything in gold. Ethan Cole stretched his one arm, feeling the stiffness in his shoulder and the soreness in his back. Max barked softly beside him, wagging his tail as he sniffed the ground. The farm was quiet, too quiet. But today, Ethan felt a small spark of energy. Lyra was with him now, and somehow, having her there made the day feel lighter. Good morning, Ethan, Lyra said softly. Her silver hair shone in the sun, and her golden eyes reflected the light. She was carrying a small basket of supplies, moving gracefully over the uneven ground. Morning, Ethan replied, forcing a small smile. He rubbed his stubbled face and looked at the ruined barn. We have a lot to do today, Lyra nodded. I am ready. This started with the barn. Ethan had already cleared the worst of the debris, but the structure was still weak. The wood was burned and brittle, nails were missing, and parts of the roof had collapsed. Lyra watched him work for a moment, tilting her head. "You do a lot with one arm," she said. Ethan shrugged. "I manage. Just takes longer." Lyra moved closer and, without a word, extended her hands over a broken beam. A faint, soft light appeared around it, and the wood lifted gently into place. Ethan froze. He had not expected this. "What? How did you do that?" he asked, astonished. Lyra smiled softly. "I can help. Just a little. It will make things easier for both of us." Ethan scratched the back of his neck. "Well, thanks. That's something." Together, they rebuilt parts of the barn. Lyra used her strange abilities carefully, lifting heavy beams, adjusting nails, and making the structure steady. Ethan hammered the boards with his one arm, feeling more confident with each swing. It was hard work, but he realized something. He was not alone anymore. After finishing the barn frame, Ethan wiped his forehead and leaned on his hammer. "We need to think about the fields next," he said. "Most of the crops were destroyed in the fire. The soil is burned. Nothing will grow without help." Lyra nodded and knelt to examine the soil. "I have ideas," she said. She pointed at the ground. "We can make it fertile again. It will take time, but it is possible." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Time is something I have, but I don't have machines or money for seeds." "Everything is gone." Lyra smiled faintly. "I can help with that too." Slowly, step by step, they worked through the morning and into the afternoon. Lyra learned quickly. She carried water, cleaned the old animal pens, and even tried feeding Max, who was suspicious at first but soon warmed to her gentle hands. She asked questions constantly. "Why do humans eat so many different foods?" she asked while helping Ethan cook a simple meal of eggs and bread. "Because our land can grow many things," Ethan said. "We are used to variety. Makes life a little better, I guess." Lyra nodded, her golden eyes thoughtful. "On Saradia, we eat fewer things, but every meal is designed for perfect health. Your food is simple, but it has warmth." Ethan smiled at that. Warmth is important. After lunch, they went to the fields. The soil was dry and gray, cracked from the fire. Ethan dug small holes with his one arm, sweat running down his face. Lyra knelt beside him, planting seeds with care. "You have patience," she said. "Humans can be strong, but you also take your time." "That is good," Ethan shrugged. "Patience comes when you have no choice." Lyra laughed softly. "Perhaps, but patience and strength together. That is a gift." As the days passed, Ethan began to see changes. Lyra was learning to live on Earth, and he was learning to trust her skills. They made small repairs to the house. Lyra had a way of noticing things that Ethan missed. She fixed a broken window with careful precision, taught him how to protect the animals better, and even suggested simple tools to make his work easier. Neighbors started noticing. Some came to the burned-down road to watch the strange woman with silver hair. They whispered to each other, some in admiration, some in suspicion. "Who is she?" a man asked one morning while walking his dog past the farm. "She's I don't know," said another. "But look at that barn. He's rebuilding faster than I thought." Ethan ignored the whispers. He only cared that Lyra was helping him. She never complained, never criticized, and she always smiled. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Max lay between them, tired but content. "I don't know if I can thank you enough," Ethan said quietly. "You make this feel not impossible." Lyra reached out and touched his shoulder gently. "You are stronger than you realize. You survived the fire. You survived losing your arm. You can survive this farm too. I just help you see it." Ethan looked at her, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. I never had anyone believe in me like this before." Lyra smiled softly. "Then I will. I will believe in you every day." That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Lyra went to the window. She pulled out a small, glowing device hidden in her robes. She spoke softly in a language Ethan could not understand. Holographic images appeared. showing Earth and another planet full of glowing cities and floating gardens. She was contacting her family. She asked them for help. Not for herself, but for Ethan. She wanted to surprise him. She wanted him to have a chance to rebuild, to see that hope was possible. She did not want him to feel like he was being helped because he was weak. She wanted him to feel strong. The next morning, Ethan noticed Lyra moving differently. She was still smiling, still laughing, still learning. But there was a quiet confidence in her that he could not explain. You seem different today, he said. Lyra tilted her head. Maybe. I like seeing you work. I like seeing you rebuild. It makes me happy. Ethan smiled faintly. You make me feel alive again. I haven't felt that in a long time. Lyra reached out and held his hand, her touch light but firm. Then we will make this place alive again, together. Days turned into weeks. The barn was rebuilt. The fields were cleared of ash. They planted seeds carefully, water and sun giving life back to the dry soil. Ethan discovered that having Lyra there made hard work easier. She lifted heavy loads, fixed broken fences, and even made small tools for him. The fire was still a memory, but it no longer defined him. With Lyra, he felt capable. He felt hope. One afternoon, the clouds gathered and rain began to fall. Ethan feared for the new crops. The soil was soft, the seeds barely rooted. He ran into the field, feeling the wet mud squish beneath his boots. Lyra was already there, her hands glowing faintly. She lifted small amounts of water from the field, guiding it away from the fragile seedlings. Ethan watched, astonished. You have powers, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra smiled. A little. Enough to help. Nothing more. Ethan shook his head. Why didn't you tell me? Lyra looked at him with golden eyes full of warmth. Because I wanted you to do it yourself. To see your own strength. Ethan felt a rush of gratitude. She was not just helping him. She was teaching him to believe in himself. That night, as they sat by the porch under the stars, Ethan felt lighter than he had in months. The farm was not finished. The fire had destroyed much. But for the first time, he saw potential in the land, potential in himself. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. You will rebuild, she said softly. Ethan nodded. I hope so. I really hope so. He realized then that life was not just about surviving. It was about working, hoping, and believing. And with Lyra by his side, he believed again. The stars shone above, silent witnesses to the farm and its rebirth. Ethan closed his eyes, breathing the cool night air. Somewhere, far beyond Earth, Lyra's world was watching, ready to help, and Ethan knew, deep in his heart, that the farm, the house, and even his broken life could rise again. Slowly, surely, with hard work and care. With Lyra beside him, he was no longer alone. The days passed, and the farm slowly began to breathe again. Ethan Cole worked from sunrise to sunset, his one arm swinging hammers, lifting tools, and planting seeds. Max ran beside him, barking at birds and rolling in the soft dirt. Lyra was always close, moving gracefully among the ruined fields, helping, observing, and learning. Ethan noticed that the days felt shorter now. He was tired, yes, but there was a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in months. Lyra made him laugh sometimes, her curiosity about everything from mud to cows endless. She asked questions about Earth, humans, and farming. Ethan answered as best he could, realizing that explaining life to someone who had never seen it made him appreciate it more. One morning, he called her to help check the fence near the east field. The old post had burned in the fire, and some of the wire had snapped. Ethan lifted the heavy post with difficulty. Lyra stepped beside him, placing her hands on the wood. The beam rose slightly, moving as if guided by invisible strings. Ethan's jaw dropped. You make it look easy, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Lyra smiled. I am helping. You do most of the work. Ethan shook his head. Still, how can you do that? No one else could lift these beams. Lyra glanced at him, her golden eyes serious. I have ways, but I wanted you to grow your strength too. This farm, it is yours. You should feel it rising beneath your hands, not just watch it happen. Ethan realized she was right. Her help was not meant to take away his effort. It made him feel capable. Every nail hammered, every board lifted, every seed planted, it was his achievement. With her guiding hand, they finished the fence by afternoon. Ethan stepped back and looked at the line of new posts and taut wires. The east field was safe now. Max ran along the fence, barking and wagging his tail. Ethan laughed and scratched behind his ear. Looks like we did something right for once. Lyra crouched beside him, watching the animals. The fields are small now, but they will grow strong. You will have enough for the animals and more. Ethan smiled faintly. More? We could sell some, maybe. Lyra tilted her head. Perhaps. But we must focus on growth first. Survival, then prosperity. Weeks turned into a month. The seeds they planted began to sprout. Small green shoots rose from the blackened soil, fragile but determined. Ethan could not help but smile every time he saw the tiny signs of life. Look, he said one morning, pointing to a row of sprouts. They're growing. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands hovering above the plants. Yes, small, but strong. Just like you, Ethan. He laughed softly. You keep saying that, because it is true, she replied simply. Life at the farm became a routine, but a happy one. Ethan began to enjoy the rhythm of work. He woke early, fed Max, checked the animals, repaired fences, and worked the fields. Lyra learned every task quickly, sometimes making improvements he had never considered. She suggested new ways to water the plants, ways to protect them from pests, and even simple tools that could help him work with one arm. One afternoon, heavy clouds gathered over the farm. A storm was coming. Ethan's heart sank. He had worked hard on the new crops, and the rain could destroy them. He ran to the fields, mud squishing beneath his boots. Lyra followed, her hands glowing faintly as she moved among the plants. The water lifted from the soil, diverted gently, leaving the seedlings safe. Ethan watched in awe. You saved them, he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. I only helped. You planted them. You care for them. That is why they survive. Ethan realized she was teaching him more than farming. She was teaching him to believe in his own abilities. To see that strength was more than muscle, it was patience, care, and determination. The storm passed, leaving the fields wet but alive. Ethan leaned on a fence post, breathing heavily, mud covering his boots and clothes. Lyra stood beside him, her silver hair damp from the rain, eyes shining in the fading light. You did well today, she said softly. Ethan shrugged. We did well, together. Lyra smiled. Yes, together. Word of the farm's recovery spread through the small town. Neighbors came by to see the miracle. Some were curious, some skeptical. A few whispered about Lyra's strange appearance, her silver hair, and golden eyes. Ethan ignored them. He had learned that small minds often fear what they do not understand. Lyra never let the whispers bother her. She smiled and worked harder, letting actions speak louder than words. One afternoon, a neighbor named Henry Miller stopped by with a wagon full of supplies. Heard you were getting things back in order, Henry said. He scratched his head. I didn't believe it at first. But looks like you're serious. Ethan nodded. It's a start. Still a lot to do. Henry looked at Lyra. And, who's this? This is Lyra, Ethan said. She helps me with the farm. Henry raised an eyebrow. Am alien? Lyra smiled. Yes, but I am learning. I like this place, and I want to help. Henry scratched his head again. Well, I can't argue with results. The fields look good. He handed Ethan a sack of seeds. Maybe this will help some. Ethan thanked him. As Henry left, he turned to Lyra. People are talking. Lyra shrugged. Let them. They will see the results soon enough. Ethan nodded. She was right. Actions matter more than words. One evening, after a long day, they sat on the porch. The sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in orange and red. Max lay at their feet, tired from the day's excitement. Ethan said. I never thought I'd see this again. The farm. Alive or green. Growing. Lyra smiled. Life always finds a way, even in burned fields. Even after loss, Ethan nodded slowly. You make it seem possible. I forget sometimes that I can do it. That is why I am here, Lyra said softly. To remind you. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He had been alone for so long, carrying all the pain, the loss, the fire, the memory of his parents' dreams. Now, with Lyra, he felt hope. Real hope, not just dreams. That night, Ethan slept better than he had in months. Lyra stayed awake for a while, standing by the window. She pulled out her hidden device and spoke softly in her own language. Holographic images of her home planet appeared, showing tall towers, glowing oceans, and fields that floated above the ground. She sent a message to her family, asking for help for Ethan. She wanted the farm to thrive, not because he needed charity, but because she believed in him. She wanted him to see that humans could rise, even from fire and ruin, if given the right support. The next morning, Ethan noticed a small change in her behavior. She was still curious, still smiling, still learning. But there was a quiet confidence in her that he could not explain. You're different today, he said. Noticing her calm demeanor, I am happy, she replied. Seeing the farm grow, seeing you work, seeing hope return, Ethan nodded. You make me feel alive again. I didn't know it was possible. Lyra reached out, holding his hand. Then we will keep going, together, every day. Weeks continued, and the farm became a place of growth and learning. Ethan taught Lyra about human life, and she shared her strange and wonderful knowledge of her own world. They became a team, a partnership. The fire was still a memory, but it no longer defined them. The fields grew green, the barn stood strong, and the house felt alive. Ethan realized that survival was not enough. Life could be beautiful again. With patience, hard work, and someone who believed in him, he could rebuild not just his farm, but his hope, his joy. In his life, Lyra sat beside him on the porch one evening, golden eyes reflecting the stars. The farm will continue to grow, she said. Ethan smiled faintly. I hope so. I really hope so. He realized then that life was more than work. It was care, belief, and shared effort. And with Lyra by his side, he could do anything. The stars shone above, silent witnesses to the farm and its recovery. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the cool night air. Somewhere far away, another world was watching, ready to help. And for the first time since the fire, he believed that his farm, his home, and even his broken life could rise again. With Lyra beside him, he was no longer alone.